Good morning. It's a good day. It is good to be in the presence of God with the people of God. Am I right? This will be familiar. Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you're with me. Your rod and your staff, well, they comfort me. You prepare before me in the presence of my enemies a table. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely, goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The shepherd. It is a beautiful picture of who God is and what he is up to with us in relationship, and it is a gift given to us in this psalm. But it brings me to ask the question of who's shepherding you? I've had a lot of shepherds in my life, and I apply that in several different ways. I've had a lot of elder shepherds in the church who have truly shepherded me, who have mentored me and poured into my life and changed me because of it. I've also had shepherds who don't carry a title, but people of influence. People who have intentionally wrapped their arms and their lives around mine and invested and influenced. Probably the first two people that shepherded me were my parents. And I function as a pastor in a church that's very different than where they find themselves and what they raised me in, but they shepherded me to love my God. My dad also shepherded me to love people. Like, I never was around my dad when he wasn't smiling and engaging with people. Like, he had a people disease. And I can't help but shake hands and give the hugs wherever I go. I think he just passed that on. My mom taught me to talk. So in intermediate school, middle school, high school, I would land on her kitchen counter while she's cooking, and we would just talk. How about you? Who shepherds you in your heart? Who is the spiritual, relational, emotional, even physical influence in your life? This Psalm 23, starts by saying, the Lord is my shepherd. And here's two things about that. Number one, absolutely, God is the great shepherd. Period. And he longs for nothing more than to play that role in your life. But here's the caveat to that. Like, we get to choose whether or not he's our shepherd. Jesus in a teaching, in a parable in John chapter 10, describes himself as the good shepherd, and his sheep are those who know him, who hear his voice, and who respond to him. It's not a given that just because God is the shepherd that he's yours. Like, it changes the way that we read Psalm 23, doesn't it? In view of that, David is declaring in this psalm that God is my shepherd, and look at what's happening because of it. And so before we jump in and look at what this psalm is and does and what God is promising and what the result of shepherding is, I think we ought to honestly look at ourselves and ask the question, who is shepherding you? Let me help you. Some considerations. Who's your go-to person? Like, when you want to talk, when you have something that you need, or you just need connection, like, who's your go-to person? And how often do you move toward pursue that influence? But see, those questions assume that there is one. And just real frankly, there's a large number of us who can't answer that question. There's an article in the New York Post in July this year that talked about the loneliness epidemic that's taking over our culture. And one line in it says this. It says, as our country works to end the pandemic, we are still in the midst of a loneliness epidemic. Let me throw some numbers at you. One of the greatest places of loneliness for us is men not having friends. In this survey in research, they say that 1 out of every 5 men do not have a single close friend. And that number has multiplied by 5 times since 1995. There's something that's changing relationally in our culture. For adults, both men and women, this article's research says that 41% of men and women do not have what they would call a best friend. That's up from 33% in 1990. And then you move from adults, you move into the younger generation, like my older kids' generation, Gen Z. And this is a group of people from ages 24 and down. It says that social media and technology have multiplied the level of loneliness and isolation in that culture. And the quote from that article is basically saying that the loneliness epidemic with Gen Z is getting to dangerous levels. I don't think that we can talk about shepherding without acknowledging this. Now think about what we did last week and how we had 35 of our friends in green shirts on this stage that are raising their hands as community pastors saying, we want to help create community for you. We want to invite you in. There's a place for you to be known and to know others, and it will change your life. Like there's shepherding influence available. Our number one characteristic in our DNA in communities. We have 6 DNA characteristics. Our number one characteristic is authentic relationships. I want to tell you today, if you find yourself alone and not shepherded, show up there. Before you leave today, go to that wall where the big TV is and the 20 tiles of our communities and read them. Scan them with your phone and sign up. It'll take 30 seconds. And show up. But here's the deal. Regardless of the relational engagements in your life, you will be shepherded by something or someone. The question is, who is it? Let me ask some questions and help you process that. I think the first question is, what circles of influence do you pursue? Where do you find yourself? Where do you give yourself away? And there's a number of ways to look at that critically in our lives. The first place that I would encourage you to look at is pull up your phone, look at your calendar, and what kind of appointments do you make? Like, where do you go? Who are you giving your life away to? Another way to do that is to, on my phone, swipe left, and there is a phone tracking app, and it will tell on me. It will tell me what I'm doing and where I'm spending my time. And if I'm spending my time in text messages and phone conversations, if I'm spending my time on news apps, if I'm spending my time on social media, it will tell on me of how I'm giving myself away. And as I'm giving myself away, what the end result of that is, who and what is influencing me. I referenced this summer when we were talking about media, a documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. If you haven't read it, I don't think you can read it. If you haven't watched it, I want to encourage you to go watch it. And it talks about our culture and what is going on with this. And I don't want to just drill down into social media, but it's an aspect of this. And one of the realities is you are now the resource that they're selling. Like marketing has changed and you've become the thing that they sell. And what they're trying to do is sell influence. They want to influence your thoughts and your behaviors. They want to shepherd you. I have social media, but let's use it with our eyes wide open. It is possible to be shepherded by default. It is possible to be guided and changed and influenced without even knowing that that's what's happening. Because we get the opportunity to choose. And what we choose results in us being led to certain places. Us being convinced of certain ideas and ideals, and us being persuaded into certain actions. Quite honestly, it's what shepherding is. It's someone guiding you to the life they have for you. So 3 options of shepherding in our lives. Number 1, it's Psalm 23 shepherding. Number 1, it is being shepherded by the good shepherd. Us choosing that the Lord is Lord, and we are declaring that actively and inviting his influence. The good. Option number 2 is the bad. And it is us actively, intentionally choosing things that are not of him. Knowingly saying, who cares? I'm gonna go this way. And inviting negative, destructive influence into our minds, hearts, bodies, and souls. So we have the good, we have the bad. There's also an ugly shepherding option. And quite honestly, I fear, I'm not afraid of it, but I am afraid that that is where most of us live. The ugly shepherding option is this: that we passively move through life, giving away our influence to the loudest voice in our life. So I want to ask you this morning to think, to reflect, to do some soul searching here. Who or what shepherds you? Who is the loudest voice that's influencing who you are, what you become, what you think, what you do? Is it a friend, a coworker, a spouse? Is it a boss or an authority figure? Maybe someone that you would like to impress? Is it thousands of anonymous people in your life who give you value on social media? Is it a certain political movement? For some of us, it's an addiction to sex or to substances. Who or what is shepherding you? And the follow-up question to that, and please hear this: who or what is shepherding them? Is it the good shepherd? Is the thing or the person who is influencing you the most being influenced by the heart and nature and character of our God? If you want to know where you're headed, that is the single most important question about influence and shepherding that we can ask. And so I ask, where are they taking you? To where, what pasture are you being shepherded? And as you consider this and the people and the things and the influences in your life, I want to press the brakes just for a second and encourage you not to consider motives. In the last year and a half, we've had a lot of relational conversation about people's and movements' motives. And I will tell you, you will always find yourself in a hole that is nasty when you are trying to place someone else's motives on an issue. The better way is to deal with things that you can control. And what you can control is the level of influence of those actions in your life. What is the result of being exposed to these things for me? And here's the number one test. Is this influence leading me to a life of love, joy, and peace? In Galatians chapter 5, there's a list of the fruit of the Spirit, the results of the Spirit of God in our lives. Love, joy, and peace are the hallmarks. Where God shows up, these things erupt. I will tell you, if the number one influence in your life is not resulting in love, joy, and peace, we need to kill that influence. Please, not literally. Not that kind of preacher. Consider for a moment the influence of the Good Shepherd, the pasture that he takes us to. Psalm 23 says, "The Lord is my shepherd." My current NIV says, "I lack nothing." You probably know that from memory as "I shall not want." What it simply means is I am not deprived of anything that I need. Like, my God is good. He takes care of me. And he fills me with everything that I need. He knows me better than I know me. I'm going to put my life in his hands. Verse 3 says he refreshes my soul. You know what the end of a good day feels like, don't you? Like those 100% days when you have gone out and you have given yourself away and you have sacrificed for someone else's good, and it's been hard work, either relationally, emotionally, or financially, or physically. But you're at the end of the day and you lay your head down and your head hits that pillow, and it's just, it's like you've just eaten at a banquet. And you're just so full that you're about to explode. You know that feeling, right? Like Psalm 23 says, he guides me along the right paths, and it refreshes my soul. Verse 4 says there's no fear. Wouldn't that be good right now? I mean, are you ready to live this life without fear? And yeah, I am talking about this pandemic we're in. I'm not talking about living your life as if it doesn't exist and living your life just flippantly. I'm saying living your life in view of life, in view of what it's really about, and not constantly being defined by this fear thing that we can't control anyway. God has something better for us. Verse 4 goes on and says that he's comforted and disciplined. He says the rod and the staff, like the thing that is to get the sheep back in line, like it's comfort to him. Like there's a walk with God where denial and discipline and moving into right ways is just freedom. Verse 5 says that we're blessed in front of our enemies. Like God throws a party for you in front of people who want to take you out. It's this imagery of a big banquet and being anointed and God saying, this one's mine. This cup overflows. And love and goodness will define our lives forever. I want to dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I want that shepherd to be my shepherd. And I want to tell you, as a pastor here at this church, I don't always choose that. I sometimes I sell my influence somewhere else. But I want this. And I want to invite you in to the house of the Lord because it's better.